Hello everybody and welcome to this playthrough for Pro and Expert Division with various wind here for the Party Paris with a new whole location and the Grand Parade tournament. Before we take a closer look, make sure that you do hit the thumbs up button, also subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. Those of you that do want to improve your game a bit more and truly make sure that you get to the weekend round, that you have a possibility to fight for medals on a consistent basis, you go to patreon.com/golfclashtom and get one of our tournament package there. In March, we do have 3 tournaments for the price of 2. Follow the info box on the right hand side to get the club distance adjustment, elevation adjustment, also what ball and club type I suggest you to play with. Have in mind that those are all suggestions and you don't have to follow it if you don't want to, but there is always a plan behind it. So let's go to hole number 1. Hole number 1 is probably the hole that has changed the least amount when it comes to how we play the hole, because it's still gonna be 2 ways. I played this hole 12-13 times and I got the same wind angle every time. That's why I'm fortunately only have a headwind play for you all, but I'm gonna try to explain the more tailwindy play. But for those of you that are familiar with Parc de Paris will know exactly what I'm talking about. So in headwind, I'm playing with the rock here just to give myself enough power so we're not going in between clubs with the quarterback. I also want to have the accuracy here to just ensure that we're getting the ball to approximately the same place all the time. Max plus 10 using 3 right spin and somewhere between 4 to 5 bars of top spin depending on what wind angle I'm having. Second shot, I'm gonna play with the Grizzly, and the Grizzly is gonna be played very close to minimum distance of our club. And I'm using 3 left spin, and I'm also not using any type of top spin or backspin here to start looking at finding a way to have the ball guideline just through the hole, or like just past the hole. So I'm adding a little bit of topspin in the end because I was a little bit short with the ball guideline, aiming approximately half a green square right of the pin. And now from this distance I am actually playing minimum distance plus 10. So playing the minimum distance plus 10 and then hitting perfect will give you a very good chance for a drop here on hole number 1. So when talking about tailwind, then we're gonna go straight over all the rough and the sand with our drive. Going straight forward is going to be the absolute best way to lock in an eagle on this short par 4. But if you don't have a crosswind or a tailwind, you are not really, it's not possible for you to play that way. But if we do have the wind for it, we bounce over the rough and the sand into the rough to roll out. From there we then have a short iron or a wedge towards the pin, and then the eagle chances increases massively compared to having to lay up like I'm doing here. But unfortunately I didn't get that wind in practice, so I couldn't really show you, but that play is more or less exactly the same as we have been playing before. So hole number 1 doesn't really offer any different things than what it did before, and that's truly important to have in mind, which means that this is still going to have to be an eagle if you're going to have anything to do with winning the tournament. So hole number 2, they have made this one way more difficult. No! So now the pin stands much closer towards the rough and the sand and also the fringe line, and we all know from experience that the fringe is definitely super inconsistent. So what I've been doing here is that I play with 5 bars of backspin, 0.8 left spin, and using the inner ring to be just by the rough line in complete max distance. Max plus 20 is the number to play here. And we are going to have to be careful now with a bad great right, because the reason I'm moving myself to be so much right is to remove the fringe from play. Because the fringe is being sloped, which means that the ball will be pushed in a way that is going to be very difficult to know how it's going to be pushed. But you can see as well on our first bounce that a great right will most likely clip the rough and roll into the sand. So it's obviously a risk we're taking, but as they have moved the hole in the way they have done, they are forcing us to take a greater risk. I would say that you having right to left wind, then using a sniper from the right side fairway is definitely something to think about. But in the end though, I would say sniper gonna be played in crosswind and in headwind. Goliath is going to be played in tailwind. And again, you decide what type of risk you want to take. But if you're going to push for an hole-in-one and don't want to go for a tough sand bump or a rough bump and want to play on the fairway, I mean, I do have a suggestion for you. But again, be careful because we're aiming close to the rough. So, hole number 3 could be a fun hole, it can also be an extremely boring one. Because if we do have headwind, we are fighting for an eagle. If we do have a tailwind or a crosswind, we're fighting for an albatross. And that's what I wanted to display here. However though, those of you that has been playing this hole before know that we used to have a massive funnel to play into with our Guardian on the second shot. We don't have that anymore, unfortunately. That's actually sad, because this was a fun hole in that way, because it's not often that you do have a good chance for an albatross. You often have to fight a lot for that, and that's what we're gonna have to do now. Max plus 15, and I'm playing a slow needle max OP. You can obviously play this drive in many different ways. The result we are looking for is to roll this ball down to be into, into approximately 410 to 430 yards, somewhere around that. Now, for the second shot, I'm still going to play the Guardian because of the weirdness of the green and the fairway before in terms of how it slopes. I definitely feel that the backspin is going to be the best way to do it. However though, I'm not really sure that using left spin as we originally did, like I'm doing here in the video, is the right way to do. I think we need to attack the pin more bang on instead of having to try to play for the back end of the funnel like we did before. So instead of using left spin, I would be using right spin instead with this angle and try to attack it this way. Because you will notice here now that when I do hit perfect, I am catching a part of the funnel because it's located more left than where the pin stands now. But it's not curving down because again, the whole location is not into the funnel. So it's not curving down as we want to towards the hole. So they have made this hole much more difficult to drop, but the drop is still there. So it's not impossible to drop it, but it's very important to have that in mind, that they have moved the hole a little bit and made it tougher for us all, especially if you are very used to Party Paris and that massive funnel that usually come in play on hole number 3. So, when it comes to this par 3, they have moved the pin more right. So now we are somewhat outside the funnely area that we used to work with before. So I would value going for a rough bump here. However though, it kind of requires to play either with a power 3 ball from max line or a power 1 ball from complete minimum distance line. So I'm using spins here to leave the ball guideline slightly short of pin. And just pointing towards the left side of the cup. Adjustment is max plus 15. Have in mind that obviously you do drop down into the sands. You need to just have that in the back of your mind. However though, the tailwind is helping pushing the ball towards hitting the rough as we would like. Center the ball, hit perfect, and you're gonna have a good chance for a drop. Can you play bouncing on the fairway to the left as we have done many times? Yes, you can. However though, you're going to be required to use way more curl than what we have done before. And using curl on shots such as par 3s, we do wind angle tweaks generally with curl, but that's a different thing. Now we would have to use somewhat around 3/4 of a ball in curl, or maybe 1 ball of curl, and that's going to be a lot of curl to be able to replicate spot on every single time. So I recommend to go for the rough bump as a general approach, but obviously bouncing on the fairway will always result into a safe birdie with an outside chance for an hole-in-one. So hole number 5, you will see first me playing with a Kingslayer, then you will after that see an approach shot with a regular ball. And as in Pro and Expert, the Kingslayer will not be as featured, but I want to show you a way to catch the funnel even though they have moved the pin away from the original funnel on this hole. Max plus 10 is what I'm gonna use here, even though I'm not in max distance. I'm using 6 bars of topspin, 3 right spin, and the goal here is to push the ball to be as far on the right side possible. So the reason we want to be as far right possible is to give ourselves a better angle towards trying to catch the funnel on the second shot. But I would say that if you do not have the possibility to play with a side spin 4 ball, you cannot play into the funnel and going to have to settle for a regular bounce over shot. And I will show you both, because my opponent played a nice bounce over shot where I was playing for the funnel. When it comes to playing into the funnel, you're going to have to play with a club that do have a decent amount of topspin. And that's going to either be the Falcon or it's going to be a Hornet, for that matter. If you're going for the bounce over, you can play with a Thorn as well. So, what we're looking for here now is to use all of the side spin to the left here. And I'm looking to actually do a rough bump, because playing from the pad is going to force me to play so far to the right of the pad that it's going to be risky when it comes to grade. So you can see here now that I'm adding some topspin, adding right spin. You can see there is the funnel. So I decide to reduce a little bit of topspin to utilize all the side spin instead, to be completely into the funnel. You can see here I'm moving back and forth and the ball guideline is not going to move, which is then perfect, because then I know that I'm spot on. So here I'm playing no elevation, true club distance. It's gonna be somewhere between minimum and medium distance from where we are now. But again, playing this funnel now with a new hole location is all about what angle you have after your drive. If you're short and you don't have the angle you want, and then you won't be getting into the funnel, and then obviously the drop becomes more complex. Once again, the Kingslayer is a ball that might not be possible for all of you to play, and you might not have any other side spin 4 ball, but I wanted to at least display this way because I know there's definitely a bunch of you that do have this type of ball. So now we're going to change around a little bit, and we're going to play, just going to open up and play with a Quasar, and we're going to change the second shot. We're going to change that to Thorn just for the sake of it, and we're also going to play with a 10% elevation when it comes to the bounce over. So let's take a look at my opponent's shots and talk a little bit about that. So we do have the opponent's shot there. So now you can see here he's playing with a Falcon 8, and obviously Falcon 8 is a beast of a club, but I would say the general for pro and expert is not going to be that you have a Falcon 8. But you will notice here now that he's looking for the funnel on here now directly. So he's adding the side spin. You can see now he has the ball guideline to the hole and move. There is the funnel. You can see he's miles away of being into the funnel here. So he's going to have to either play into the funnel and use curl, or he's have to go directly at pin like that and then hope that he is having the correct adjustment. Because I'm not saying that you can't play this way, but now when the pins are standing a little bit more left and a little closer, it's going to be much more difficult to drop this one on a more consistent base. So what I would say, playing the funnel is the recommended thing, but you can definitely drop with a regular bounce over like our opponent did do. So that's everything I do have for hole number 5. Hole number 6. Now they have changed the whole location here to be way more right than what we are used to, but I do truly believe that I found a much better chance for us to make an albatross than what we had before. So I'm using half a bar of left spin and I'm using 5 bars of top spin here. The goal here is not to roll too far. I want to be close to the rough line on the right, but at the same time in range for not having the trees in play. So a couple of things to definitely think about, but I think both those things are very important. Adjustment max plus 20, and then use whatever overpower you adjust into, and then we hit perfect. The drive here has never really been easy, but there is some room for error. Get the ball down there just past the shadow, which is absolutely perfect. Now we do have a good angle towards the second shot. So instead of moving left here, because that's crap, now we're going to move right and use left spin. So I'm actually going to go for a rough bump here. if you do have a side spin 4 ball, you can move even more right, and there is a pretty big funnel the more right you are. Obviously, you're going to have to move around and look for non-glitchy spots, so you're not putting yourself in a problem. But I noticed in practice that this spot is very nice to have. So I'm playing the rough bump. I do have room for error, using no elevation as the elevation here, and true club distance. So depending on if I'm close to mid or max, then that's the club distance that I'm gonna play with. Bouncing into the rough, rolls down the green, right at pin for a beautiful albatross. I truly think that the whole location on this hole, that it has been moved to the right, is honestly better than what we had before, and that's something we are going to definitely take advantage of, and I'm looking forward to play this one in the tournament. So let's take a look at this one here now, and now I'm gonna use 6 bars of topspin because my goal is to actually rough bump myself out to the fairway and give myself a much better look with the short iron. Even though it's not max distance, I'm still using max distance club here for my adjustment, and you could notice there at first glance that they have moved the hole more right than what it was before, which makes the trees not be in play as much as it were before. However though, the difficult part with this now is that the pin stands on a little mound, which makes it more inconsistent than what it was before, because before we could use the funnel that was more left when the pin or the hole was stand more left, but now it's a little bit more inconsistent and you have to be a little bit more spot on with your adjustment. For the second shot, I decided to go with no spin. I like to do that when it comes to my short iron plays, especially this to control the bounces in a little better way. I'm using 20% elevation and then true club distance. You check where max distance are and check where minimum distance are and make a decision based off that. So adjustment is made, a perfect ball is needed, and obviously with a perfect ball we do have a good chance. You can play this hole with other balls than kingmakers. You don't have to play with a kingmaker here, but obviously reducing the wind as much as possible helps you adjust less rings when it comes to the approach shot. So a kind of new approach here in hole number 7 with the new hole location, where we are pushing the drive a little bit harder than what we used to, because we now can do that due to the trees not being in play. So let's take a look at hole number 8, and here we're going to try to mirror an old landing spot, which is the red ring by the rough line to the right with the top of the white ring by the shadow. They have moved the pin more left. They haven't really moved it as much to become an issue. I was a bit afraid that they would move it to the very edge of the green or something like that, but now I would say that this is probably gonna still be a decent chance for a hole-in-one, regardless what wind direction we're having off tee. I'm using 2.2 left spin and 2.8 back spin, medium distance, no elevation, which is 1-to-1 minus 0.5. Unfortunately, I need a little bit more left spin on this shot here to get myself a chance for an hole-in-one. And you will see here, bouncing on the fairway, gets up towards the green here and just burning the right hand side. So needed like a 2.3, 2.4 left spin. However, the speed is absolutely fine. Hole number 8 has always been like a, you know, it looks very difficult, but has actually been very consistent of dropping whenever you find the correct adjustment. So let's take a look at the drive, and when we do have a crosswind or a tailwind, I would recommend to play with the rock or the quarterback to give us as good accuracy possible, because that could give us room to hit great. When playing with low accuracy clubs such as the Apocalypse, Thor's Hammer and the Extra Mile, especially in the lower levels, then that's going to be a problem with great balls. Max +5 is the adjustment using all the left spin, trying to push the ball to be as close to the top left corner. You can see here that even if I do hit a great right, there is room for a great right, and we're not going to be in any problems. So here the drive is the same as we have been playing before. There's no change here, but they have moved the hole location here for the second shot to be way more right, which doesn't really allow us to attack the pin at all anymore. Like before, we could attack it by using a decent amount of curl, or maybe going a little bit more to the right, doing a rough bump in between other two trees. But in this case here, now we're playing this one purely for an eagle. So you can do two ways here. Obviously use the wood club that gives you the most power possible, so you don't have to use max OP, which the sniper would have been giving us. And then you either play like I'm doing here, trying to go with a lot of curl to force the ball more right to have a short putt or a short wedge. Or you played more conservative, that you just go straight up, bounce the ball out, and putting yourself on the fairway before the green and using a wedge from a little bit further range. However though, if you do just trickle into the green on the left side, that will most likely equal an overpowered putt. So that's something to have in mind. So this hole was already very difficult before, but it has been they have made it even more difficult now, which is actually a little bit sad in my opinion. Max plus 10 is the adjustment on the second shot. Take the eagle and run. Thank you so much everybody for watching this playthrough for Pro and Expert Division with the new hole location here for the Parc de Paris in the Grand Parade tournament. Definitely the new hole location is going to bring some extra spice into Parc de Paris, because truly we have been playing Parc de Paris in so many tournaments before that is nice to get some sort of a revamp with the new modifier. There are a couple of holes such as hole number 5, hole number 3, those usually had pretty massive funnels, and now it's going to be a little bit harder to get those to drop. Then we do have holes like hole number 2 that has just been making very difficult, where hole number 6 and hole number 7 has been made a bit easier in my opinion. So I don't know what you think, let me know in the comment section below. For those of you once again that do want to improve your tournament game and be there fighting for a weekend round spot all the time, and also eventually then fight for the medals at the top, you go to patreon.com/golfclashtommy. We do have the link in the description down below. If you do want to see an example of a guide, then you send in an email to support@golfclashtommy.com. Have in mind that in March we do have 3 big tournaments, so instead of just the normal 2 that you pay for, now you get 3 for the price of 2. Thank you so much for watching and good luck in your Golf Clash game.